Hello you guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Katie. I am a NASM certified personal trainer, performance enhancement specialist, and corrective exercise specialist. I am also a body neutral personal trainer, which simply means my clients and I don't really focus on weight loss, weight gain, or aesthetics. We focus on other sustainable habit and behavior changes that may impact the way that we look, may not impact the way that we look, but what they definitely do is positively impact our overall health. And last but certainly not least, I am also an elite level power lifter, and today I have something a little bit different for you. I am super excited. Today we're gonna be doing a powerlifting Q&A. I put up a question box on my Instagram story a couple of weeks ago, and you guys flooded it with amazing powerlifting questions, and I am here to answer every single one of those today. Hopefully every single one of those. One of my main goals in this space as a coach is to make fitness and health less scary. And part of that is making powerlifting a little bit less scary. I hear all the time that people are like, oh my God, I'm not strong enough to do my first meet. I don't have a coach, I can't do my first meet. That's not true. Does the coach part make it a little bit easier? Yes, but plenty of ways to kind of work around that. Anyway, I started powerlifting in March of 2017 or 18, I have no idea. But as soon as I did my first meet, I knew that that is something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I grew up competing in dance and playing soccer competitively as well. I was a goalie, any fellow goalies out there. And I think as I got into adulthood, I really missed that competitiveness that dance competitions and soccer tournaments had. So powerlifting was this great, like, washed up childhood athlete kind of arc. The environment at powerlifting meets is hands down the best environment that you will ever be in. It's one of the best environments in the world. When I tell you genuinely, nobody cares if you are lifting 5 pounds or 500 pounds, they are all screaming their head off for you. I mean that. And I just want everybody to experience it because I think that it is such a cool sport, such a welcoming sport. So this is a video to make it a little bit less scary for you and to answer some of your questions. Let's not waste another second. Let's dive right in. I feel like my bangs are not staying right today. I'm just gonna start from the top. We're not gonna go in any special order. I'm not gonna do this in like any kind of category. We're just gonna go for it, if I can find the questions. Okay, starting off with a great question that I just touched on a little bit. Do you need a coach at a meet? The short answer to this is no. The long answer is it does make it a little bit easier. I would say you need some sort of systematic, progressive programming going into a meet. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a peaking program, but something where you have handled singles before, because that's what you're gonna be doing at a powerlifting meet. In terms of having a coach physically at the meet with you, no, you don't necessarily need that, but I would recommend what we call a handler, especially for your first meet. A handler is essentially somebody that just pampers you all day, makes sure that you're okay. They listen out for your name as it's being called to get up on the platform. They help you film your lifts so that you can more accurately decide on your next attempts. They make sure you are fed and drinking water, and basically they are just there to make you feel like a prince or princess that day. A handler does not necessarily have to be a coach. It could be a friend that's competed before. It could be a friend that is open to learning and open to, you know, just listening and being in the environment around them. Because honestly, you will not miss your turn to go up on the platform. Before you go up on the platform, you will hear your name at least 4 times, most of the time if you have a good announcer. They will be calling who is 4th out, 3rd out, 2nd out, and next up, and then they're gonna just like follow you along. So if you're 4th out, you're gonna 4, 3, 2, 1. You're gonna hear your name 4 times before you have to be on the platform. So it's very unlikely that you are going to miss your turn. So I would say, no, you don't need a coach, but I would have a support person there in some capacity. In terms of programming, you want some kind of progressive programming that allows you to handle singles. I feel like I always edit Q&As and then afterwards I'm like, oh, I should have said this, I should have said that. Today we're just going for it. Today, if I missed something that I wanted to say, oh well, Katie, you should have said it the first time. Okay, can you talk more about federations, tested versus untested? I have ADHD, are there medical exemptions? Yeah, so you can get a medical exemption. I don't know much about it, to be super honest with you, but I do know that a lot of ADHD medications are on the banned substance list. So what you can do is you can either stop taking those medications 3, 4, however many days it takes to get out of your system prior to the meet, or you can compete untested. So you can stay on your meds for the meet and not worry about getting drug tested. You can also look into medical exemptions. It should be in the rule book of the federation that you are competing in, but I am 99% sure that you have to have your medical exemption ready prior to the meet. I'm so sorry that I don't know a lot about medical exemptions. You can absolutely look into the handbook of that federation, like I said, or you can reach out to your meet director, and I'm sure that they are more than happy to help you out. In terms of different federations, federations. There are a bunch of different federations that you can compete in, but the probably 4 most common are USPA, USAPL, RPS, and WRPF. Now, which federation you compete in, especially for your first meet, doesn't really matter. Main differences between federations: USPA is what I compete in. USPA uses a deadlift bar, a squat bar, and a power bar for bench. In USPA, you can bench with your toes on the floor or your heels on the floor. You can also use a talon grip when you squat. What other differences are there? I think that about covers it. In USAPL, you use a power bar for squat, bench, and deadlift, so a stiff bar. In USAPL, you have to bench with your heels on the floor and you cannot use talon grip in your squat. What else? And then RPS and WRPF are basically USPA. Same situation with the bars and the rules. Other than that, there is a lot of controversy right now among what federations are good and bad. In my opinion, they're all shit. Here's the thing. When you are dealing with federations that are run by humans, you're always gonna run into issues. USPA was in the hot seat for a little bit this last year. I have time blindness, I don't know. For issues that everybody likes to forget that USAPL and RPS were dealing with a couple years prior to that. So nobody is good. USPA is extraordinarily flawed. USAPL is extraordinarily flawed. Blah, 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 blah. I am extraordinarily flawed. Oh my God. I am extraordinarily flawed too, apparently. Anytime you have anything that's run by humans, people are gonna people, and it's all gonna get messed up and messy and weird and gross. So I kind of try to stay out of all the politics, and I have reasons that I don't compete in USAPL and I choose to compete in USPA. And honestly, sometimes it's just as deep as I like to pull on a deadlift bar. That's all I'll say about that. I don't want to get canceled. But truly, when you're choosing your first meet, don't worry about different federations. I would look at all the different federations and find out who is closest to you in geographical location and who has a meet that lines up with a good timeline for you. I really wouldn't worry about the rest. Unless you like only train on a deadlift bar, then I probably wouldn't train on a deadlift bar and go pull in a USAPL meet, but that's just me. All right, training schedule / how you build your workouts. So I just came out with a series on Instagram that kind of flopped, to be honest with you. That's okay. On my different training split, and I have a post ready to go on my current training split, which is very similar to what I just made that series on. Personally for me, I cap my power lifters at 4 days a week. That might be controversial. I don't really think it is, but maybe it is, I don't know. I find a lot of times when you have a really good program that asks the most of you, you don't need 5, 6, 7 days a week. I'm literally falling off this chair. Oh my God. In powerlifting, we are under pretty high RPE a lot of the time, and that takes a lot out of you mentally and physically. So your body needs those 3 extra rest days, in my opinion. So a very typical powerlifting, power building kind of split is going to be squat and either your competition bench or a bench variation, deadlift and either your bench or a bench variation. Wherever you don't put one, you would put the other. Another squat variation and bench variation day, and then a deadlift variation and a bench variation day. And all of your accessories would essentially just feed those main movements. So if you're doing main squat, main competition bench in one day, your accessories are probably gonna be like quads, chest, triceps, stuff like that. If you're doing a main deadlift and a bench variation day, all your accessories are gonna be feeding those, so it's probably gonna be some chest, back, hamstrings, stuff like that. Squat and bench again, accessories are gonna be quad, hamstring, back, chest, stuff like that. And then deadlift and bench again, hamstring, back, core, you're getting the idea. My current training split, I have a squat main and bench main day with, what's my accessory on that day? What the heck do I do? I just started a new program, so I don't really know it yet. What the fuck do I do? Competition squat, competition bench, overhead press. That's it. Day 2, I sumo deadlift, and then I have a bench variation, and then I just hack squat. I usually toss in a lat pull down at the end of that day as well, because my current program doesn't have a lot of pulling, and I want more pulling in it. Day 3, I have a squat accessory, a bench accessory, and dips, and then I normally toss a row in at the end, similar to the lat pull down. I just want more pulling. And then last but not least, I have a deadlift variation, a bench variation, why is this not loading? And a snatch grip RDL. Powerlifting programs are often very bare bones. We focus on big, important movements. But there's about a million different ways to program, but like I said, I just came out with a series on it on Instagram, so you can definitely take a look at that. Okay, what level of fitness / strength, if any, should someone have before they start powerlifting? I love this question. This is one of my favorite questions because I think that this really goes into breaking down that kind of like accessibility barrier that I think is in place sometimes, or we perceive to be in place. As long as you can squat the bar to depth, bench the bar with a pause on your chest, and deadlift the bar without ramping or hitching, you're ready to compete in powerlifting, baby. Genuinely, there is no minimum requirement for any of the 3 lifts. I've been at meets before where there are people squatting 95 pounds. I've been at meets before where there are people squatting 700 pounds in the same meet. Genuinely, there is no minimum requirement. And that's what I fucking love about this sport, honestly, is you can be any fitness level, and genuinely everybody in that room is screaming their head off for you. And I think part of the reason is because everything is in kilos and nobody in America can do kilo math. So literally, if the bar is loaded, people are cheering for you because nobody knows what's on that bar, and really nobody cares what's on that bar because it's you against you 100%. So short answer to that one, there's no requirement. Just do it. You're never gonna feel ready. I didn't feel ready for my 11th powerlifting meet. I won't feel ready for my 12th powerlifting meet. You're never gonna feel ready. You just have to do it. And I promise once you do, it is addicting. All right, next up, probably a silly question. Are there any, oops, hello? What did I do? Okay, probably a silly question. Are there any rules regarding existing health conditions? No, except with like the medication rule of tested versus untested. If you're on any medications, just make sure that they're not on the drug tested list so that you don't get popped for illegal substances. But no, absolutely not. Wondering what reload meals look like for a meet. Love it. I posted this in my meet recap on YouTube, yes, and then I also posted a TikTok about it. So when you are reloading, we want to focus on carbs, specifically a lot of salty carbs, so that you can hold on to as much water as possible, especially if you water cut going into your meet. No, you do not have to cut any weight in order to compete. If you just want to compete wherever you naturally sit, do it. I personally don't let my clients cut any more than like 5 to 6 pounds for a meet, and we do it very slowly over the course of their entire prep. So we're gonna be eating a lot of salt so that we can, again, hold on to as much water as possible. We're gonna be focusing on hydration, again, so we can get as much water back in us as possible. And it's really just carbing up. I ate a lot of sweets, a lot of cake, a lot of pizza, a lot of chips, a lot of liquid IV. It's mainly a big, fun, gorge day. Basically a rotten bed and eat all your cravings kind of day. But of course, we still want to feel good going into meet day, so we don't want to completely overdo it, and we still want to get all of our macro and micronutrients in, so we don't want to just ignore everything. But it is definitely a fun day, filled with lots of carbs, salt, fun foods. And then similarly on meet day, we're focusing on fast sugars, lots of sweets, you'll see lots of candy. And on meet day, you don't want anything that's gonna sit too heavy in your stomach, and you definitely don't want any new foods or spicy foods, because you don't want any question of how they're gonna react with your tummy. You don't want the shits at a meet. I can tell you that from experience. Okay, I know you coach. What do you recommend for someone looking for a coach, especially online? So I do coach. I am a coach. That is my #1 job. But as a coach, I will also never gatekeep other amazing resources and free resources. So what I offer as a coach, I have a generalized 9-week prep program. I also offer individualized programming calls for non-one-on-one clients. So you can book a call with me just to sit down and write you a program. I can usually get anywhere between like 10 and like 23 weeks of programming done in a 1-hour call. I am a machine. I also have a Power Building 101 program, which is a great generalized off-season program. And then I also offer one-on-one coaching. It is currently closed due to high volume, but as soon as my waitlist spots open up, I will be blasting all my social media with it, don't you worry. In terms of other coaches, I have been running the Reactive Training Systems coaching for, I don't even know, probably like 6 months now, and I am absolutely in love with it. The user interface is not fantastic. I definitely require some help from Joe, my in-person IT team. My fiance, Joe, is a software engineer, so he helps me through it. But the programming is fantastic, and honestly, hiring a coach for myself is one of the best decisions I made as a coach. There is no shame in the game of coaches having coaches. Other than that, the Strength Athlete, TSA, they have a great free prep program. Calgary Barbell has a free prep program, and those are probably the top 3 that I would recommend: Reactive Training Systems, TSA, and Calgary Barbell. Okay, are you able to test the racks at the competition to determine your your height. Yes, absolutely. So when you go in for weigh-ins and gear check, you will also get all of your rack heights for your squat and your bench, as well as the face savers on your bench as well, the safety arms. So that is not a problem, and you can also edit and change your rack heights as needed. I actually changed my rack height at this last meet. I asked them to bring it down one because on my opener I felt like it was a little too high. What is the powerlifting plan that you follow? So I follow the reactive training systems. I don't know which offer I do. I do the $35 a month one. I forget what it's called. Oh no. I think it's just called like the, in text Joe. What's the RTS option we do called? So in my off season, I've been using that. And then for my prep, I ran my 9-week prep program that I came out with a couple months before I prepped, and I loved it. There were a couple of changes that I made to it personally just to fit my needs a little bit better, but it is a fantastic generalized prep program, and I stand by that. Okay, how are you maintaining being in the 160s going forward and not gaining weight? Great question. So one of my off-season goals this off-season was to stay a little bit closer to my weight class. I feel like that is my goal every single off-season, to be honest with you. But this past meet, I had a really smooth cut. Again, don't tell my clients to cut any significant amount of weight. I was cutting from about 172 to be in the 165 class. I used to compete as a 148, and then I decided to move up a weight class. Best decision I ever made. And now I've been competing as a 165 since like 2021 or 2, whenever we competed right after COVID. I naturally sit around like 169 to 171, but I was cutting from just a smidge higher than that, like 173, high 172. And I had a really smooth cut. A week out from weigh-ins was sitting at like 166. I was like, this is fantastic. And then the morning of weigh-ins, I was still a pound and a half over, and I was like, what the fuck? So I unfortunately did have to get on the treadmill the morning of weigh-ins, and that was not fun. I did not enjoy that. So one of my main goals this off-season is to stay in the 160s, like 169.9 being the highest. And basically, I'm just doing that by not eating like a garbage disposal like I like to do sometimes. I am still allowing myself all of my favorite foods. I literally just had a brookie before I came to film this. I'm still allowing myself ice cream, cookies, cakes, everything fun. But I'm also making sure that I'm prioritizing my fruits, my vegetables, and kind of filling up my volume that way. And also just being mindful of my portion sizes of my fun foods, specifically like my chips, my cereal. I do love my cereal. I still have a bowl of cereal every single day, okay? But there was a point there where I was getting to like 3 bowls of cereal a day, and I was like, girly pop, what are you doing? So honestly, I'm not following anything structured. I personally don't track my food because it's not safe for me as somebody with a history of eating disorders, but I'm really just being more mindful and allowing myself like 1 serving size of something and then saying, okay, you've had your portion for today. If you want more tomorrow, it's here tomorrow, but today we're good. And I am also planning on keeping my walks and steps up so that I'm getting at least 10,000 steps a day. No, 10,000 steps a day is not like the magic number. Literally a guy made that up and the internet ran with it, okay? But for me, I know that I feel better. My low back feels better, my hip feels better, and I just overall feel less stiff. And walking extra is always great. It's a great way to increase your total daily energy expenditure. So I'm personally making sure that I'm getting at least 10,000 steps a day, usually a little bit more than that. Okay, what else? Right. Why do you choose 4 days of training instead of 5? Yeah, I touched on this a little bit before. So I personally find that in powerlifting, you need those extra rest days. I have tried to be a 5-day-a-week girly probably 5 times in my life, to be honest with you, and every single time I crash and burn, and it's just not sustainable for me. I have the very amazing privilege of creating my own schedule and making my own hours. That also comes with a little bit of uncertainty of what my days are gonna look like because I do have my calendar open to bookings from people. So some weeks I'll have time to train on Mondays, other weeks I won't have a second to breathe on Mondays, etc., etc. So my schedule is a little blah, 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 blah. I can't talk today. Today is not the day to be doing a Q&A. So 4 days a week is what's manageable for me, and it's what keeps me happy, keeps my body happy, makes sure that I'm not too sore, and also kind of like keeps my mental state good because again, it's tough to constantly get under load that scares the shit out of you. And I really find that when you have, like I said before, a really good program that asks the most of you, you don't need as many training days as you think you do. I want to say this gently. I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. I find a lot of times that people who train 5-6 days a week, especially general population folks, they are working out, not training. And what I mean by that is they're going in, they're saying, all right, my back feels good today, let me hit some back. And then they do a random assortment of exercises, right? Whereas when you have a progressively overloading program, 4 days a week, a lot of times, is good enough. Okay, I have never had elbow pain while squatting, and now I do. What do I do? You are talking to the queen of elbow pain when squatting. Okay, so I as a personal trainer cannot treat pain. It is out of our scope of practice, but I can tell you what's personally worked for me. This may or may not work for you. A lot of times I find, especially when we have elbow pain with squatting, you need to open up that anterior delt. A lot of times elbow pain is from that limited range of motion in the shoulder. So I will always warm up. I have a nice banded warm up that I do. Band is coming from behind, and I'll just let that band kind of pull me back to really open up that pec, open up the anterior delt, and then I'll turn around. So now the band is coming from in front of me, and I'll work on that posterior delt and try to open up this way. So now I'm pulling the band this way. Other than that, just getting under the bar and hanging for a little bit and really just allowing my shoulders to open up. Like my back is not in contact with the bar, so I'm just kind of floating, like hanging down from the bar. Really just opening up the shoulders. You can also play around with different grips, whether you like to hook your thumb, like to not hook your thumb, maybe you like talon grip. You can play around with grip width. There's a bunch of different things that you can change. What worked for me will not necessarily work for you, but it sounds like something needs to change because pain is no good. You can also go with elbow sleeves. I personally have used elbow sleeves for a hot minute when I'm squatting, except that I misplaced one and I have literally no idea where it is. So I have to buy a new pair. How do meets work? Great question. This is gonna be a long one. Let's dive into it. Basically, if you're doing a full power meet, which just means squat, bench, and deadlift, basically every lifter is going to be divided into what we call a flight. It basically just divides the lifters into groups, and you're gonna stay with that group all day. So if you're in flight A for squats, you're gonna be in flight A for bench, you're gonna be in flight A for deadlift. It's basically just a way to break the day up so that you don't have to do all, whatever it is, 45, 60 lifters, and then go back to the top. That would be crazy, imagine. So let's just say there's 10 lifters in a flight, and you are lifter number 5. Lifter 1 is gonna go do their first squat attempt, lifter 2 is gonna do their first squat attempt, lifter 3 is gonna do their first squat attempt, lifter 4 is gonna do their first squat attempt, and then you are gonna do your first squat attempt. And then lifter 6, and then lifter 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we go back to the top of flight A, and lifter 1 is gonna take their second attempt, lifter 2 is gonna take their second attempt, lifter 3, lifter 4, lifter 5, you are gonna take your second attempt, lifter 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we go back to the top of flight A, lifter 1 does their third attempt, lifter 2 does their third attempt. You get the idea. And then once you guys are done, flight B comes in. Lifter 1 in flight B does their first attempt, lifter 2 does their first attempt, and so on and so forth. So flight A is gonna do their first, second, and third attempt. Flight B is gonna do their first, second, third attempt. Flight C is gonna do their first, second, third attempt, and then flight D if there's a flight D as well. And then you're gonna take a 10-minute break. Usually your meet director will tell you what's going on there, and then everybody's gonna do their bench. Flight A is gonna do their bench, flight B is gonna do their bench, flight C is gonna do their bench, and then you're gonna take another break, and then flight A is gonna do their deadlifts, flight B is gonna do their deadlifts, flight C is gonna do their deadlifts. I hope that that makes sense. That wasn't really that long of an answer. I think I did a good job summing that up. Okay, next up. Wait, I lost them. Where did they go? Hello. The difference between the barbells. Great question. So if you are competing in USAPL, you use a power bar for all 3 lifts. It's basically just the stiffest barbell with some pretty aggressive knurling. If you are competing in USPA, RPS, or WRPF, you will use a squat bar for squat. A squat bar is 55 pounds. It's a little bit thicker and it's also longer. You'll use a power bar for bench, which is just a regular barbell, and then you'll use a deadlift bar for deadlifts. Now there's a couple of different deadlift bars. So the reason that that's advantageous for deadlifts is because if you can get a really good slack pull at the bottom of your deadlift and get some whip or some flex in that bar, then you can start that pull theoretically from a higher position, making it easier. But all in all, deadlift bars are just whippier. They bend more than a regular power bar because your range of motion is therefore shorter. So that's about it. That's really the only difference with the barbells, is how long they are, how whippy they are, stuff like that. Oh, a deadlift bar is also super long as well. Okay. Tips for someone who wants to compete one day: just do it. Period, just do it, honestly. Obviously, going into it, having a really good plan, having ideally found heavy singles, having somebody to be there with you, and having some kind of progressive program before you go in. Squat shoe recommendations, yeah. So I personally squat in Nike Romaleos or Romaleos, I never know how to say it, 2s. Unfortunately, they don't make the 2s anymore, which sucks because the 2s were the best Romaleos. But overall, I really like my Nikes, but I have also been looking at Tier lifters, TYR, as well as the Rogue Legacies. Those are the 2 on the market with the highest heel. I'm just looking around because my 2s are like 6 years old at this point. 7 years old at this point, very old, and they squeak when I walk. Lowest heel on the market, I believe, is the Adidas Powerlifts. Next would probably be the Nike Romaleos, I believe, and then Tier, and then the Rogue Legacy. Those might be swapped. No, I think they're right. I think that's right. All in all, a squat shoe is just gonna give you a higher heel, which is going to usually help with your depth, usually, if you have limited ankle mobility, because it's essentially giving us what we call artificial range of motion, where it's putting you in a position as if you had that range of motion, but you don't actually have it. Think of it more as like your floor to ankle angle instead of your actual foot to ankle angle. I'll put up a little picture, hopefully that makes sense. It's also just a super flat surface, so you won't be rocking back and forth like a running shoe or have a lot of squishiness in the shoe at all. Basically just to give you the most stable base that you can get. Is your season over? It is. I am taking a fairly short off season this time actually. I'm competing again in March, and then that's probably gonna be Joe and Mai's last big hurrah for a little bit. Joe and I have been in the very long process of building a house for years now, and we are finally almost ready to break ground. I wanted to go to nationals, but nationals is usually June or July, and we are hoping to be in our house by June, which means that we would have really no access to a gym because we're moving out into the middle of nowhere. We would have no access to a gym for training leading into nationals, which just sounds really stressful, to be honest. So we're gonna compete in March for our last big hurrah for a little bit. I am never gonna be done competing. I wanna be competing when I'm 80, okay? But so March is gonna be our last hurrah, just for a little bit, and then we'll probably compete again in 2026, which is probably also the year, hopefully, that we will be getting married. Okay, how to find competitions / what leagues, equipment to use, how to find good knee sleeves, general guidelines to writing a strength program. Whew, okay. How to find competitions. What you're going to do is go onto the website of the federation that you're looking to compete in. So if you're looking to compete in USPA, you'll go to the USPA, you'll go to the USPA website and look at their events calendar. If you're looking to compete in USAPL, you go to the USAPL website, look at their events calendar, and so on and so forth for whatever federation you're looking at. Equipment to use. The only equipment that you need on meet day is a singlet, deadlift socks, regular socks, underwear, and some kind of shoe. That's all that you need. You don't need a belt, you don't need knee sleeves, you don't need wrist wraps, you don't need squat shoes. You just need some kind of closed toe shoe. How to find good knee sleeves. Honestly, a lot of it is just like word of mouth. I feel like looking at reviews of what people think of the knee sleeves that they buy. I am personally sponsored by Pioneer, but I don't recommend the Pioneer knee sleeves for a first time knee sleeve, okay? If you are an experienced powerlifter who has worn a stiff sleeve before, kind of like an Inzer or the A7 Rigor Mortis, the Pioneer sleeves are amazing and I love them. But if you're looking for a first time knee sleeve, I would recommend SBD, A7, Strong by Mark Bell, Iron Rebel. Those are probably my biggest recommendations. There are obviously other brands on the market as well, but those are probably the most common ones that you're gonna see at competition. General guidelines to writing a strength program. Again, I just made an Instagram series on this, so you can definitely take a look at that. But generally, not to get too into it to hopefully not make this video too long, generally you want your big lifts at the beginning, your medium-ish, medium lifts in the middle, like your Bulgarian split squats, your dumbbell bench press, your lat pull downs, things like that in the middle, and then your isolation stuff at the bottom, your leg extensions, your tricep push downs, things like that. I talked about earlier in this video how I personally like to break things up for powerlifting, power building. I also have that series again on Instagram, and I also have programming calls for non-clients if anybody ever needs programming. I'm your girl. We'll sit down, we'll drink some coffee, and we'll write you a sick program. Oh my gosh, we're almost done. Okay. Why did you choose powerlifting over other sports? I love your content. First of all, thank you. This is a great question. I joined a gym in December of 2015. Yes, I think. And I honestly just tried out every single free class that the gym had to offer. Like if it was free, I was there. Because I really just wanted to find movement that I enjoyed and something that I was gonna stick with. Like I said before, I grew up an athlete, and then right before I went away to college, I experienced a trauma, and I turned to food to cope. I was super depressed and food was yummy and it made me feel really good. And so I gained a lot of weight in my freshman year of college, and I really just didn't recognize myself anymore. I didn't feel like myself, not even necessarily because of what I saw, but really because of like how I felt. Like I was always a star athlete, and now I was struggling to get upstairs to go to class. I was struggling with the quarter-mile walk to get to campus, like things like that. I just didn't feel like me. And I also needed a way to kind of like take my power back. And so I found strength training. And after I tried every single free class, I landed in this class that was 30 minutes of barbell work and then 30 minutes of metabolic conditioning, cardio. And after the first 30 minutes of the first class, I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I felt so badass. I felt so cool. I was not cool back then. I had no idea what I was doing. I felt so empowered, so powerful, so confident, and that is exactly how I wanted to feel forever. So the girl who ran the class, she was an Olympic weightlifter. I was not very good at the Olympic lifts, so I was like, hey, I think I want to do powerlifting. And I started following all of these amazingly strong women on Instagram, Meg Gallagher being one of them, and now I work with her. What? Literally, I can't believe my life, oh my God. And so I started following all these really cool powerlifters, and I was like, that's what I wanna do. That's what I wanna do. And so I talked to the girl that ran the class, and I was like, hey, I know you're also a one-on-one coach. Would you be interested in coaching me for a powerlifting meet? And she was like, I've never done it before, but yeah, let's figure it out together. And we did. And then after that, it really just took off, and I couldn't be happier. Freaking love this sport. How do I get confidence to start? I'm introverted and I don't like people looking at me, but I'm curious. Yeah. So first of all, I always hate answering these questions because I really feel like there is no secret, right? It really just comes with being comfortable with being uncomfortable, as well as understanding that every single person in the gym was once where you are. Nobody walked into the gym for the first time knowing what the fuck they were doing. I could not squat a barbell to depth when I first started. I'm honestly so mad because a couple of months ago, my laptop literally just shit the bed and it hadn't been backed up for over 1,300 days. That's on me. And all of my original, like, initial lifting videos were on that laptop, and I'm so pissed because I wish I could show you guys just how ugly my squat looked when I started. I could not squat a barbell to depth. So every single person that you see in the gym was once where you are. Nobody walked in squatting 300 pounds, running a marathon. Like, nobody knew what they were doing either, and that's okay. And if anybody has something to say about that, that's on them, that's not on you. If somebody has something to say about you bettering yourself, that's on them. But I really just think it comes down to faking it till you make it. You will not be confident every gym session. I'm not confident every gym session, are you kidding me? I actually just joined a new gym and it still is really anxiety inducing every single time that I go because one, I'm the girl with the camera, and two, I don't know anybody yet. I haven't talked to anybody, but I still go in, I get it done, put my headphones in, I listen to some metal. I really just think you have to take it in doses, right? Like maybe you start going in and you stretch a little bit and that's what you do that day. Maybe you go in, you stretch a little bit, you do some squats and that's what you do that day. You know what I mean? I think it's graded exposure, anything that you do. You just have to dip your foot in a little bit at a time and the water won't feel as cold. Damn, that was deep. Okay. Oh my God, is that it? Okay, I have one more. Bulking tips as someone who is hating meat more and more every day. First of all, hello, I am a vegetarian. I have been a vegetarian since I was 13-ish, and I am now 29. So I've been a vegetarian longer than I haven't been a vegetarian. In terms of bulking, I don't bulk and cut. It's something that never really interests me, to be honest with you. It's also something that takes a little bit more focus on nutrition than I'm willing to give. Hyper-focusing on my nutrition and tracking calories and things like that isn't safe for me as someone in continuous eating disorder recovery, I like to say. I think it's something I'll be recovering from for the rest of my life. But for my folks who do want to bulk, one of my biggest pieces of advice is super calorie dense foods, right? Especially if you're somebody that can't eat a lot of volume, focusing on things that are already high in calories, peanut butter and jelly, full fat, whole milk, just like the full calorie versions of those foods. If you currently get a lot of your carbs from fruits and vegetables, focusing on adding in some starches like rice or pasta or things like that, just kind of fluff up those meals. Because I know that bulking can be very uncomfortable, especially if you have a lot of volume to get in. That's a lot of work. Oh wait, I have some more on YouTube. Okay, moving on to the YouTube questions. You said the knee-high socks are acceptable for deadlifts. Does that include compression socks? Ooh, this is a good question. I am 99% sure that the rule book states that they have to be cotton. That's a good question. I am gonna look into that one myself. I will never pretend to know something that I don't, and I will comment it below this video once I find out. I don't think so. I personally just use old soccer socks. It just has to be a sock that goes up to your knee, but I don't believe they would allow compression socks, no. I would just go on the safe side and just get a pair of cotton socks. Is your new singlet okay for raw lifting? Yes, I am a raw power lifter, and that is the singlet that I wear. As long as you're not wearing any kind of single ply or multi-ply, then your singlet is good. How does finding out your rack height work? Again, when you go in for weigh-ins and gear check and everything, you're gonna also get your rack heights. What is ammonia for? I get this question a lot. So all that ammonia does, or smelling salts, is it gives you a super strong but super short burst of adrenaline, and it can also help with managing fear around heavy weights because it gives you that burst of adrenaline so it can decrease your fear response. It's something that you don't use all the time, but it's okay to use for heavy singles and sets that scare you a little bit. Any suggestions for people that are triggered when they know their weight? Obviously, weight needs to be known to put in the correct flight class. But I don't want to know what I weigh. So this is one of those tough love answers. You're gonna have to know what you weigh. And I think that it's a good opportunity to do some work in that area, right? Like understanding that, okay, this is what I weigh, and that doesn't mean anything other than the class that I'm in. But it's one of those things that, I get this question a lot. You have to understand, it's one of those things that comes with the sport. I'm sorry. Do you try to time your food intake to optimize your energy for your lifts, or do you just eat when you want to eat? I don't know if this person means during the day or on a meet day. On a meet day, honestly, I eat whenever I get a chance to, because meet day is usually a little bit crazy, but I'll usually have a snack after squats and a snack after bench, and then we go out and eat a lot after the meet is done. But in general, everyday life, I obviously just try to eat a heavy carb, moderate protein before I train, and then a high protein, moderate carb after I train. And then what factors do you consider when choosing what meets to compete in? Time and geographical location. So I obviously don't want to do meets that are back to back. I usually don't like to do meets that will impact our hiking season during the summer. This past meet that we did impact our hike, but it was a fantastic meet. And it was actually the first time that USPA was coming back to our city in like 4 years. So we knew we had to do it. Oh my God, to fix a squeaky shoe, take the insole out and sprinkle in some baby powder. Thank you. I'm definitely gonna do that. Y'all, this was so fun. I am so happy that we did this. I hope that we can do this again soon. It's so fun to just kind of like hang out and answer your questions. I hope that this was helpful. Let me know if you liked seeing this kind of content. I am really trying to diversify my YouTube. YouTube takes a lot of time, but I love it. So I really wanna bring you guys as much different content as I possibly can. So let me know if you love this and let me know what else you wanna see. I will see you guys next time for another week of workouts. Bye.